students of AUD and friends from outside the university. I take great pleasure in welcoming and greeting you all this afternoon, and I feel especially privileged in my task of not only introducing the lecture of the day, but also the speaker and the discussant as well. All three of them, the person we are going to talk about, the speaker and the discussant, are joined by Inner's family. I will come to this in a while, but let me first share that our Vice Chancellor, Professor Sudhir Kakar, who was to preside over this lecture, could not make it today due to a medical appointment that had to be scheduled at the last moment. She has sent her regrets as well as her wishes for the lecture. So first about the lecture. As we know, 2019 happens to be the 150th birth anniversary of M.K. Gandhi. At AUD, as you know, for a long while, as we have been doing our work at the Center of Psychotherapy and Clinical Research, and all other centers like CCK, CDP, and other centers, we have also been envisioning the Center of Engaged Spirituality. This year, and had that center come into existence, perhaps this would have been a lecture jointly hosted by the Center of Engaged Spirituality as well as by CPCR. This year, hence, marks an occasion for us to bring our efforts together and to go back and re-examine our relationship with this figure from our country who not only guided our struggle for freedom from the British, but whose influence went far and wide into the world, so much so that he became a climate, an atmosphere, an environment. Gandhi is undoubtedly considered as one of the most important persons of the 20th century, influencing the world of ideas and action, immersed as he was in his unflinching search for truth through loving introspection and action that resulted from them. Nelson Mandela, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, Thich Nhat Hanh, Martin Luther King, and several other leading figures of the world have taken after Gandhi in the vision of ethical politics, learning from his experiments the meaning of satyagraha, ahimsa, and compassion. Within Indian intellectual circles, I have often felt a deep sense of pain when Gandhi has been pitted against Ambedkar or the left thinkers. This has become a trend of our times to pit one thinker against the other rather than to think of each of them in their own right. What would have Gandhi himself thought had he been alive today? I think he would have been patient with his critics and not allowed the dialogue to break. Such was his spirit of engagement. For Gandhi had the capacity to go beyond boundaries and polarities. In the crisis that our country is in today, I personally remember him most for his last 3 fasts, in which he said that he would fast unto death till every Muslim in this country would return back to their home and feel safe and secure. So, I would leave you with the thoughts, why do we need to remember Gandhi today? What kind of a leader he was? Is our nation in this kind of a crisis where the teachings of Gandhi become even more important and urgent today than perhaps at this time? Now let me come to the speaker for the day. Sudhir Kakar is undoubtedly India's best known psychoanalyst. He hardly needs an introduction. But still entrusted with this pleasant task, let me say a few words about him. Raising conceptual, clinical, and methodological issues and spanning over a period of more than 4.5 decades, Professor Kakar's lifetime works, internationally recognized and embodied in over 28 books, which have been translated into 22 or more languages across the world, today constitute a vast body of knowledge that have laid the foundations of a depth-oriented cultural psychology and the practice of psychoanalysis, which is of value not only in the pan-Asian but also the international context. It is a deep privilege and honor that he has been a mentor to the programs of psychology at AU. His honors, awards, and international recognitions are far too many to be listed by me today here. His most recent book in press is Brotherhood is Now a Distant Aspiration, a series of essays on Gandhi. So for us, who could have been a better speaker than him today to speak about Gandhi's authentic leadership? There are many young students in the hall today for whom it might be the first occasion to meet Professor Kakar in person. So let me share how I have read him as a student of psychoanalysis in a few lines. For me, he stands tall as he foregrounds major debates preoccupying humankind since long, such as West versus East, man versus woman, science versus religion, rationality versus irrationality, consciousness versus the unconscious, psychoanalysis and mysticism, and so on and so forth. Professor Kakar never reduces them into a binary. He takes us into that intermediary third space where through a mode of non-violent intellectual engagement, newer meanings begin to emerge. So like Gandhi, he too invites his readers to stay at gray zones, to appreciate ambivalences and the emergence of meanings in the in-between spaces where third realities emerge. His is a search for inner continuities amidst apparent ruptures, divides and discontinuities. Also true to the psychoanalytic spirit, he remains in search of a greater holism of life by highlighting the exiled, denied or suppressed aspects in the cultural being of the human narrative, such as the play of violent forces in sexual intimacies, the control of the woman's sexuality, the underside of dominant ideologies and religions in perpetuating communal violence, and much more. Throughout his writings, even as he focuses on the maternal feminine and the place of eros, he also concentrates on human development as potentially fostering darker propensities and lurking humans towards splitting and inhumanity. Of great value is his focus on oral traditions, narratives, myths, fables, folk tales, autobiographies and memoirs as sources of data in the invocation of the human story. His entire corpus of knowledge provides for a solid methodological foundation from where, actually speaking, a culturally embedded psychoanalytical discipline in India and elsewhere has taken roots from. Now let me come to the discussion and then we move to the lecture. How does one introduce one who has been part of the seminar? Professor Ashok Nagpal needs no introduction to those within AUD. He has not only been a founder member of the School of Human Studies, the founder dean of the school, but also one of the founder members of the team that thought about the initial imagination of this university. Till January 2019, he was Professor of Psychology and Psychoanalysis at the School of Human Studies. Before joining Ambedkar University, Delhi, he was a professor at the Department of Psychology, University of Delhi, where he was the first director of the Center of Psychoanalytic Studies from 2006. He has been passionate about creating conditions for the teaching and training of psychoanalysis, and he has been actively associated with the dissemination of psychoanalytic psychotherapy and cultural psychology for the last 35 years in India. It is remarkable to think of him in the manner in which he understands and communicates the nuances of human experience. He too, like the other two that I have spoken about, N.K. Gandhi and Professor Kakar, also always stands for personal truth and a vision in which the opposite and the opponent are to be considered as shades of the same. With this, I invite Professor Kakar to deliver the lecture.
Thank you, Mani. And always, of course, you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
No, not very
No.
clear.
No. Closer?
Yeah.
Now. Okay. Thank you very much for this very kind introduction. I'm very happy to be back at AUD. And since this is the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, and we have just elected our new leadership, I thought it would be a good idea to reflect with you on what Gandhi can teach us about leaders and leadership. Not about good leaders, who have a whole library of books and articles devoted to analyzing the secrets of their leadership, but great leaders. And by great leaders, I don't mean you have to be leader of a nation, but great leaders can be anywhere, independent of the size of their institution or the number of their followers. Today, when all over the world, trust in our leaders, whether in politics or business or any other human activity, is at an all-time low, when the most important quality people find for in their leaders is integrity or authenticity, I think we can fruitfully turn to Gandhi as a prime exemplar of authentic leadership. Gandhi is an illustration of the crucial but generally unacknowledged role that spiritual intelligence, as I would like to call it, plays in the lives of great leaders, especially in situations in which a natural tension exists among the conflicting pressures to do right with respect to their institutions, with respect to the greater community or society, to act correctly vis-a-vis another human being, and to satisfy one's own values and sense of right or wrong. Here the question is not of employing of leaders' skills, but of employing them under a spiritual compass in a situation of moral ambivalence and uncertainty. As the psychologists Howard Gardner, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and William Demon observe, if excellence and ethics are not in harmony in such situations, either the individual, the institution, or the wider community, or all three will suffer. The voice of ethics, essentially spiritual in origin, becomes loud at these times. And it is this voice that I want to explore here. We do not have any leadership gurus who can help us in this uncharted territory. Our guide in this exploration will be Gandhi, who still puzzles many people. Was he a saint in the business of political leadership, or a political leader aspiring to be a saint? And does the saint business have any lessons for the leadership business? What are the essential elements of Gandhi's leadership from which we can draw lessons for our contemporary crisis? I would identify 6. Sympathy, detachment from fruits of action, deep introspection regarding mission and identity, listening to the inner voice from one's unconscious lips, carrying out the decision reached with fearless and humor, and acceptance of complete responsibility. To avoid awkwardness, I'm giving the pronoun he, his here. However, the ideas in this talk will apply to both genders unless otherwise specified. This is not only political correctness. First, sympathy, an overarching term that includes its many gradations: fellow feeling, compassion, feeling of kinship, empathy. Brotherhood, Gandhi writes in one letter, is just now a distant aspiration. To me, it is a test of true spirituality. All our prayers, fastings, and observances are empty nothings, so long as we do not feel a live kinship with all life. To one of his many critics, and there were many throughout his life and even after his death, who wrote to him suggesting that violence is the law of nature and that man is animal first and human afterwards, Gandhi replies that man can be classed as animal only so long as he retains his humanity, and goes on to say, the correspondent apologizes for suggesting that I might regard myself as a remote cousin of the ape. The truth is that my ethics not only permit me to claim, but require me to own kinship with not merely the ape, but the horse and the sheep, the lion and leopard, the snake and scorpion. The hard ethics which rule my life, and I hold ought to rule that of every man and woman, impose this unilateral obligation upon us. Here Gandhi is in the tradition of some of the greatest Indian icons, Buddha in ancient India, Kabir, Nanak in medieval North India, Tukaram in Maharashtra, Basava in Karnataka, the Tamil saints, and Gandhi's contemporary Rabindranath Tagore in modern India come immediately to mind, who have held that the feeling of sympathy is the supreme value of our civilization. For Tagore, for instance, in contrast to the West, Indian civilization sought to establish a relationship with the world, with nature, as also with all living beings, not through the cultivation of power, but the fostering of sympathy. And I quote him here, when we know this world as alien to us, then its mechanical aspect takes prominence in our mind. And then we set up our machines and our methods to deal with it and make as much profit as our knowledge of its mechanism allows us to do so, he writes. This view of things does not play us false. This aspect of truth cannot be ignored. It has to be known and mastered. Europe has done so and reaped a rich harvest. For us, the highest purpose of this world is not merely living in it, knowing it, and making use of it, but realizing our own selves in it through expansion of our sympathy. Not alienating ourselves from it and dominating it, but comprehending and uniting it with ourselves in perfect union. Indian and Western are of course not monolithic categories, but only refer to the dominant strands in the imagination of the two civilizations. Tagore, I believe, is not suggesting a simplified dichotomy between Indian and Western views. In the West too, there have been thinkers, for example, Edmund Burke and Adam Smith in the Anglo-Saxon world, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer in the German-speaking one, who said, compassion is the basis of all morality, who have shared the traditional Indian civilizational value of sympathy, love in its most elevated form, as indispensable to social cohesion and solidarity. And we are all familiar with the famous slogan of the French Revolution, now a universal aspiration, liberté, égalité, fraternité. Liberty, equality, fraternity. It is interesting to note that fraternity, brotherhood, occupies the last place in this short list, and indeed has become muted, if not sidelined, in contemporary Western discourse. I must also note that with the exception of saints like Saint Francis, who is said to have addressed even a wolf as brother wolf, the dominant current of Western thought since the last 200 years has confined brotherhood, sympathy to one's own group and not extended it beyond its borders to other human beings, not to speak of other species. In our fascination with Western intellectual gurus from Karl Marx to Michel Foucault, we do not realize what a disproportionate space the Western idea of the role of power in social relations has come to occupy in modern Indian mind. Again, this is not to reject the value of the role of power, and the truth it contains, but in Tagore's spirit, to seek to assimilate this truth with our own heritage on sympathy. To take an example, social movements in service of justice for the weak and the oppressed are rapidly picking up pace in our country, shaking traditional hierarchies and power structures. This is a very welcome development. Most of these movements, however, seem to operate on the basis of only one ethic, justice, which is related to the issue of power, of correcting skewed and unfair power relations. In an almost secularized ethic of justice, what matters is the outcome, not the path. Thus, there have been many and continue to be many eloquent voices that have defended violence in service of justice. I believe that the Indian ethic of sympathy, compassion in this context, must temper the quest for justice. In our quest to right a wrong, bring the ethic of justice to the forefront, we are perhaps in danger of losing sight of what both Gandhi and Tagore and others before them held was the defining characteristic of Indian civilization. In Tagore's words, creative force needed for the true union in human society is love. Justice is only an accompaniment to it, like the beating of a tom-tom to song. I would go as far as Tagore and would say equality and fraternity, equality and brotherhood are equally important. The rhythm of justice and the melody of sympathy are both indispensable to the song. Sympathy, understood in the spirit of Gandhi, is the highest manifestation of human soul. Initiated in our love for those who nurtured us when we were children, and our love for our own children, friends, lovers as we get older, it is only the wider and wider manifestations of sympathy that are the true measure of human progress. The soul is insignificant as long as it is imprisoned within an individual self. It reveals its significance and its joy only in connectedness. Actually, the more vigorous our individuality, the less the need to encase the individual self in an armor of self-centeredness, and more the capacity to make it permeable and thus participate in the play of what we call the soul. Perhaps later on at the end, I'd also like to show how Gandhi also incorporates this vigorous individuality. So to me, the question of the fate of the soul after death, central to our religions, is not especially interesting. If we do not free the soul from its prison of individual self, guarded by warders of self-centeredness while alive, I doubt whether there is a hope of its freedom, of its salvation after death. To adapt the poet Robert Frost's observation on love, the earth is the only place for the soul. I don't know where it is likely to get better. Or as the German mystic Meister Eckhart remarks, what the soul is in its ground, no one knows. But this we do know, that the soul is where God works compassion. For Gandhi, the development of sympathy is not sufficient by itself, but involves a responsibility or translating it into action in everyday life, as also in social and political action. Gandhi's emphasis on altruistic action, which he regarded as a law of life in accordance with divine will, has at its base the development of sympathy as a supreme human virtue, an achievement higher than all other forms of human creativity, artistic or scientific. The development of this feeling has of course many gradations, including empathy, the feeling into another, as expressed in Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Narsingh Mehta's Vaishnav Jana to Tere Kahiye Jo Peed Parai Jane Re. Call only the one Vaishnav who feels the pain of others. Both altruism and empathy, on which it is based, have a troubled place in reigning currents of modern thought. Economic theory, based on the premise of Homo economicus acting rationally out of self-interest, selfishly, is as uneasy with altruistic behavior as is sociobiology with its belief in the selfish gene as essential to evolutionary success. But what if the dichotomy between narcissism and altruism is false? What if doing good to others is actually doing good to yourself? Indeed, I would suggest that altruistic empathy and egotistic prudence are not in conflict but complementary to each other. Doing good to others is also doing good to yourself. Altruistic behavior raises self-esteem and thus contributes to feeling of personal well-being. In other words, acting on the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, present in various forms in all the world religions, may not only be vital for an individual's spiritual progress, but even for psychological well-being. It is not only a moral exhortation, but an empirical fact. The Buddhists stated flatly, paying attention to one's own needs is the producer of suffering, cherishing others, the giver of happiness. The advocacy of altruism is not an ideological stance, underlined only by wise sayings which may or may not be true, but very much a matter of empirical fact. And here I am not only talking of psychological well-being and happiness, which some may consider as vague categories, but of concrete physical health. The benefits of altruistic behavior are so large that they even show up in improved health and longer lifespan. In a large longitudinal study from the United States, those who reported giving more help and support to spouses, friends, and relatives went on to live longer than those who gave less, whereas the amount of help that people reported receiving showed no relationship to their longevity. In other words, it is indeed more blessed to give than receive. And to all my young friends who are contemplating a career in psychotherapy, I would like to say you may not earn much, but psychotherapy, doing psychotherapy is the best antidepressant you will have. Since this particular study also studied the effect of specific altruistic actions, it might be of interest to give some details regarding these. As we know, aspirin is often prescribed as a preventive to those at risk of heart attack. To help another person has 5 times more positive effect on your longevity than injection of aspirin. Just to listen to another person is still twice as good as aspirin for your survival. Indeed, recent research in social neurosciences suggests that empathy and altruistic behavior that is motivated by empathy may be wired into our brains. Witnessing the pain of a stranger activates a similar pain network in our brains, the so-called mirror neurons. Although this empathy reaction almost disappears in men, in contrast to women, if the stranger is perceived to be a bad person. To witness good deeds, altruistic behavior gives rise to feelings of elation that are physiologically related to the rewarding release of the hormone oxytocin. In an ingenious experiment, the social psychologist Jonathan Haidt gathered 45 nursing mothers with their infants in a psychological laboratory where half were shown videos depicting altruistic behavior while the others watched comedy videos. Almost half the mothers who were shown the morally uplifting video showed increased milk flow or nursed their babies after watching the video, while only very few mothers did so after watching the comedians. The first group also turned towards their babies more, touching them and clasping them to their breasts. Haidt comments that the effect was one of the biggest I ever saw. Other experiments demonstrate the presence of altruistic behavior in children as young as 18 months and even in 2 to 3-year-old chimpanzees who simultaneously help a familiar adult who appears in some distress. I just mentioned mention the hormone oxytocin, popularly called the love drug or cuddle hormone, that rewards caring, altruistic behavior. It is the hormone that provides a powerful motivation to care for one's children as also forge other kind of bonds. It makes people trust others, and conversely people who behave trustingly cause oxytocin levels to rise in the partner they trusted. Oxytocin levels rise in people who report feelings of wanting to help someone who is suffering. Our brains secrete more oxytocin when we have intimate contact with another person, even if that contact is a back massage. Whereas the release of oxytocin in the brain is a physiological basis for why human beings are a caring lot, evolutionary biology would explain the evolution of our altruistic gene as a result of natural selection. In contrast to the selfish person, people who helped others were more likely to get help when they needed it most, say in attack by predators. But what about cases when for some reason or other, acting on the golden rule, doing good to others, does not bring good but harm in return? Where your compassionate act is reciprocated with a slap on the cheek. And here, true to our first loyalty to truth, we must point out that though caring behavior is built in us, saintly behavior of turning the other cheek is not. That requires exceptional human beings, saints. It seems that all of us have a reciprocity reflex that is activated in impersonal situations, interpersonal situations. In other words, we are trying to act according to the dictum, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, I'll stab your back if you stab mine. Theorists even talk about an exchange organ in the brain, as though a part of the brain is keeping an account of debts owed and insults to be avenged. Specifically, the strategy of this exchange organ is to be nice in the first round of interaction, but after that, do to your partner whatever your partner did to you in the previous round. The exchange organ wants to repay a favor even if the favor is an empty one. In one study, a psychologist sent a Christmas card to randomly chosen people who he did not know. The great majority sent him a card in return. An awareness of our unconscious tendency, tit for tat tendency, of insult for insult, injury for injury, fairness for fairness, and very important, the bias towards fairness at the start of an interaction is helpful knowledge for all our interpersonal encounters. In day-to-day life, the reciprocity principle under which we unconsciously operate is visible everywhere. People, and especially salespeople, who want something from us, try to give something to us first. Waiters placing a sweet or a song on the tray with the check get more tips than those who don't. We must, however, not downplay the suspiciousness which an exhortation to altruism for the good of society encounters, and rightly so among a large section of our young and older people. We must remember the English poet William Blake's admonition that he who would do good to another must do it in minute particulars. General good is the plea of the scoundrel, hypocrite, and flatterer. This is an observation that is as true of India and other countries in 2019 as it was of Britain in the 17th century when it was first made, of general good. Gandhi's contention, following the great homini religiosi of the world before him, on the primacy of empathic altruism in social life, the spiritual law he endeavored to extend to political world, and which he believed is simplest to understand and easiest to execute, may indeed not be a utopian dream, but a revolutionary reality. At the very least, it is a part of our ego ideal, as much a part of our psyche as the powerful forces of desire, aggression, and narcissism. We have already talked of the essential presence of a wide-ranging empathy that must animate an altruistic action for it to be spiritual. Gandhi, for instance, does not believe that non-violence is limited to refraining from destroying life, a mere refusal to do harm. As we advance in search, we realize that we are one step after another to climb. No one can climb all the steps in one leap. I'm quoting Gandhi here. Mere refusal to have. And to the next page. I'm quoting Gandhi. Non-violence means an ocean of compassion. It means shedding every trace of ill will for others, he says. Altruistic actions are not spiritual unless they have a vision of love behind them. A truly spiritually altruistic act can only be by a person who loves helping others, who is personally involved and gives the gift of his person along with whatever else he might give. A remote leader, however skilled and well-meaning, who does not gift his person in his interactions with others, lacks that particular spiritual grace which can hugely move and motivate others. Gandhi was of course aware of the human limits to the practice of non-violence and the danger human narcissism poses to empathy, compassion and altruism. The Dalai Lama, who has been meditating for at least 3 hours every day for over 50 years, tells this story about himself. In the place where he lives, there are many mosquitoes. When the first mosquito alights on my bare arm, he says, my thought is, fine, my friend, you must also live. Have your meal of my blood. With the second one, he is a bit irritated. When the third one comes buzzing to the dining table, he squashes it flat. The Buddhists believe that your thoughts when you are dying have a huge effect on how you are reincarnated in your next birth. Pure spiritual thoughts ensuring a higher form of consciousness in the next life. When I am dying, Dalai Lama says, I will make sure that my bed is covered with a mosquito net. Gandhi too would agree. He says, I believe it is impossible for one living in this body to observe non-violence to perfection. While this body endures, some degree of egotism is inescapable. We retain the body only so long as egotism persists. Bodily life, therefore, necessarily involves violence. The further we travel towards an ideal, the further it recedes. As we advance in its search, we realize that we are one step after another to climb. No one can climb all the steps in one leap. This view does not imply cravenness of spirit or pessimism, but certainly there is humility in it. Yet we must remember, and the social psychologist Roy Baumeister, after reviewing the literature on violence and cruelty, reminds us that threats to self-esteem, what psychoanalysts call narcissistic injuries, account for the largest portion of violence at the individual level. At the group level, it is moral idealism, an aspect of group narcissism that believes in the group's superior morality and mission, which is the main culprit. Leave something out. We don't have time. So we often talk of the psychological qualities such as emotional intelligence that a good leader needs to possess. We never talk of the vital aspect of spiritual intelligence of the great leader, his compassion. Let me now come to the second element of Gandhi's leadership, detachment from fruits of action. Gandhi was aware of the danger human egotism poses to empathy, compassion and altruism. To look for guidance in counteracting the forces of egotism, Gandhi turned to Bhagavad Gita. And to Gandhi, Gita, the chief message is that since action embracing all forms of mental and physical activity is an inevitable corollary of life, spirituality cannot be disassociated from man's material life and worldly pursuits. On the contrary, spirituality must inform daily life. In other words, a spiritual life has to carve out of the field of human narcissism and its forces of greed, ambition, and self-centeredness. The way to do so, to overcome the insidious egotism, is not to renounce action, but renounce the fruits of action, to become detached from the results. Detachment does not mean indifference. In regard to every action, Gandhi says, interpreting the relevant verses from the Gita, one must know the result that is expected to follow, the means thereto, and the capacity for it. He who, being thus equipped, is without desire for the result and is yet wholly engrossed in the due fulfillment of the task before him, is said to have renounced the fruits of his action. In more psychological language, Gandhi is suggesting that a passionate but non-egotistic involvement in one's work is the path to the development of spiritualization of life. And for Gandhi, this acceptance of Gandhi's central message has its corollary, a way of life led in truth and non-violence. I quote him again, when there is no desire for fruit, there is no temptation for untruth. Take any instance of untruth on violence or violence, and it will be found that at its back was the desire to attain the cherished end. Psychological studies confirm that when it comes to the pursuit of a goal, it is the journey that counts, not the destination. The final moment of success is often no more thrilling than taking off a heavy backpack at the end of a long hike. You may have worked long and hard at a project. If you succeed, you'll be lucky to have a couple of hours of euphoria. I think one of the most remarkable studies showing that results do not matter as far as individual happiness is concerned is a comparison of people who have won millions of dollars in a lottery jackpot with those who became paralyzed from the neck down because of an accident. Within a year, lottery winners and paraplegics have returned most of the way to their baseline levels of happiness. Of course, it is better to win the lottery than break your neck, but not by as much as you would like to think. We all have our default levels of happiness to which we return no matter what happens to us. Detachment, the subjugation of narcissus, does not come through knowledge, but by what Gandhi variously called heart churn or heart culture, in which an uncompromising ethical living of life is combined with deep introspection, the third essential element of the spiritually informed leadership. Let me move away from Gandhi for a moment and give the example of a young man's introspection as he progresses on his way to becoming a leader with high spiritual intelligence. Quoting, that's what the leadership was teaching me, day by day, that the self-interest I was supposed to be looking for extended well beyond the immediacy of issues that beneath the small talk and sketchy biographies and received opinions people carried within them, biographies and received opinions, people carried within them some central explanations of themselves, stories full of terror and wonder, studied with events that still haunted or inspired them, sacred stories. I hear all of these voices clamoring for recognition, all of them asking the very same question that have come to shape my life, the same question that I sometimes, late at night, find myself asking. What is our community, and how might that community be reconciled with our freedom? How far do our obligations reach? How do we transform mere power into justice, mere sentiment into love? Such episodes of deep introspection, heart churns, this is as of Barack Obama, before I think he started losing it after becoming the president, who is quoted in the passage I just read to you, are necessary way stations in the development of a leader with spiritual intelligence. Such heart churns are typical of situations where the decisions become especially difficult because of ethical concerns. The psychologist Gardner, who I quoted earlier, averred that at such critical times, instead of choosing the path of least resistance when in conflict, a leader must not only reflect on his mission as a leader, but also his personal sense of identity. That is his deepest felt convictions about who he or she is and what matters most to his or her existence. A central element of identity is ethical, and a leader must determine for himself or herself which lines he will not cross. A good way of clarifying this is a mirror test. How do I feel myself when I look into the mirror? This image of the mirror test comes from the story of the German ambassador in London, who, as part of a celebration he had to host in honor of Britain's King Edward, this is before the First World War, was asked to provide for the visit of the German Kaiser a bevy of prostitutes. The diplomat felt that he could not do this and instead resigned his position. Asked why he did so, he responded, "I refuse to see a pin in the mirror in the morning when I shave." It is deep introspection that facilitates the hearing of the inner voice, the third element of spiritual leadership. In a state of despair, and these were not infrequent, especially near the end of his life, Gandhi often lamented that he could not hear this inner voice. Yet there were enough times full of energy, commitment and conviction when he felt he was following the truth as one sees it at the moment. These were the times when he heard his inner voice, on which he set such great store, most clearly. The inner voice of Gandhi is the voice of the spirit, and Gandhi was stubborn in following its dictates, even when they were contrary to the advice of all his friends or recommendations of his closest political associates. In fact, to hear the inner voice, sudden and unexpected, when one is in crisis and agonizing over which road to take, is a sign of being in a state of spiritual grace. It is indeed the moment of truth. Let me give one instance of one such decision Gandhi took, a decision which is now seen as a defining moment in India's struggle for independence. The time is the beginning of the year 1930. The political tension in the country has been mounting, and the Congress, the organization struggling for independence, has passed a resolution demanding full independence from British rule. It has left the how of reaching this goal to Gandhi. The next 2 months are a period of tense anticipation all over the country. People anxiously await word from Gandhi, who has secluded himself. As days stretch into weeks, rumors begin to sprout around his continuing silence. He is retiring from the struggle, says one. The saint who had strayed into politics is returning to the real business of saints, the pursuit of salvation of the spirit. Another has him endorsing a violent movement to drive the British out. He has given up his faith in non-violence and would now exhort the youth of the country to take up arms. Gandhi was silent for many days. What he was searching for was a form of collective action that would capture the imagination and rouse the spirit of the poorest of India's masses. Many expected that his proposed movement would follow the time-honored path of civil disobedience, the refusal to pay taxes to the government, the boycott of its law courts, something like that. But Gandhi was looking for something that touched the life of every villager, and one morning he suddenly announced his decision: salt. Salt? The Congress leaders were incredulous when he first told them at a hurriedly summoned meeting. Are you serious? You expect us to make salt? But Gandhi's arguments and the good humor with which they were advanced soon convinced them. Salt was a basic necessity of life. It could be easily made by Indians. Yet the British imposed taxes on it and imposed strict control on its production. Gandhi decided that India's freedom struggle should begin by breaking British salt laws all over the country, and that he would be the first one to break them. The letter he wrote to British Viceroy, informing him of the decision, was characteristic of him. Addressing the Viceroy as dear friend, he writes, "My personal fate is absolutely clear. I cannot intentionally hurt anything that lives, much less fellow human beings, even though they may do the greatest wrong to me or mine. Whilst therefore I hold the British rule to be a curse, I do not